Hi, I'm the True Wise Gamer, giving off my vast knowledge so you may understand games a bit better. If you want to just jump to the point where I talk about the combat, go to this time point and, watch it there. But I need to actually talk about a few things, so go there now. First off, I want to apologize this video taking too long. I really did not want to take it this long. But some things happened and prevented me from doing it. Like, for example, you'll notice I'm not live. And I usually do like to try to be at least add some live segments. But here I had trouble for at least a week trying to get them to work. And I don't know why I did it. And after today's, where I'm basically trying to edit it all down, make sure I've not got anything wrong, which is something I'll get into in a little bit, I basically said screw it and just say voice over it. Which is really annoying, by the way, because I had a really cool thing where I would show off something about the gameplay, which would kind of show off what's wrong with it, but I think I talked about it enough to make a good point about what I'm getting at. But, in any case, let's actually begin talking about Final Fantasy 13 again. So they soon awaken and are somehow alive, and they don't know what the hell just happened. As did I, because originally I did not know the context of that last scene. And here's where I need to mention the Ultimania for this game. Now you see, I wouldn't mention that unless it was really important to mention, because it actually does have important information in it. Like, for example, it actually explains what exactly happened to Snow's group after this event. Because, most people would believe they are dead because of, this environment we're in right now. But no, they're not dead. They're in fact very much alive. And it's only weird because they haven't ever tried to contact Snow after this. Even though he goes to their shop constantly, well, depending on if the player does so. But the idea that this is not an option for them is a little weird. Because again, this guy right here owns the shop. McCube, because I know I referenced him in the beginning, but even now, as I'm editing this, I'm still forgetting his name. But back onto the Ultimania guide. Because you see, it actually explains a bunch of other stuff in the game that is never really explained in-game in particular. Like, for example, how the branding works, as again, it's a plot-crucial detail that is not elaborated on in the game when it could have been. And yes, I know the game talks about it, but not in the way I'm talking about it here. Because the game leaves out a crucial, if not important detail that changes the entire narrative around it. Because as we will continue, this plot point will become very vital. And this is also important to mention. This will not be the last time where I will need to mention the Ultimania guide again. Because again, it is really that important. But in any case, they are in, or on top of, Lake Brescia. Yeah, Lake Brescia! That lake that was always there. Even though they never made it apparent that it was there, and... Hey, wait a moment. Where the hell did Snow land exactly? Cause when they were showing him falling, they just showed a pitch black darkness, and nothing under him. So, doesn't that mean he should have landed in the lake? And somehow that would have actually been a better explanation about how he survived. And wait a moment, they were inside the vestige. Why are they outside of it? God dang it, is this game just doing this for every transition now? Where they don't actually explain how they got there? God, that is just some lazy bullshit. And before someone tells me, oh, Pulse or Anima transported them there by metaphysical bullshit. No, he did not literally transport them there. Because metaphysics deals with the abstract, your soul and whatnot. But in any case, say what? Oh, right, the flashbacks. Yeah, we'll need to talk about those, and I don't know why I forgot it. Maybe it's because they're not that prevalent, and also they're not that good. Probably the latter. See, the game has flashback to before everything, and I kind of have to wonder why they even did that, because I think it would have been better if some of these cutscenes were at the beginning, to make sure we understand the characters and maybe even like them before we have to, tolerate them. And to tie this with the flashback, there is also something called the backlog that tries to recap everything that happened before in the previous chapter. But honestly, they kind of do a poor job because they don't elaborate on everything and kind of misremember things at times. So heading back onto the flashback is that of Snow proposing to Sarah, even though she's a lessee now and they're hoping to get the approval of Lightning now. That is it. Actually, while we're here, we might as well talk about Sarah and something I really did want to talk about. You see, she's mostly a plot device, with a character that can be described as simply a nice girl. I know it seems so blasé, and the next game will try to give her more things to do. Well, whoop-de-doo, you gave some plot device some character. Great job. Wish you did that at the beginning. Because, all honesty, the game doesn't give us anything about her. It's barely anything worth even mentioning. She's just a boring character. That makes me wonder why the heck do any of these characters care about her? Oh, and there's one more thing about this scene, and it's actually pretty interesting when I learned about it because I didn't know about it. You see, this scene here has a song removed. Yeah, that's not even a joke. The game does this at multiple times without ever actually giving a good reason why. Either redubbing a song or just outright removing it. It's weird, you know? In any case, the flashback is over. We're back to the present and they're repeating stuff. And it's really annoying as a Sieve is about to attack them. But I have to ask, why is it here? Seriously, why is it here? Snow is able to use magic against it, though I'm have to wonder how Hope knows what magic is. Since, how can he tell it's more magical than something like mana drive technology, which to note is different than the grab technology that Snow and Lightning use. And I only mention this difference because there is a difference that most people won't care about. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I was going to make a joke about something that was important to the combat, and that was where I was basically playing the game with just one hand and not even looking at the game in and of itself because it's pretty automatic. You can just press a button and win. However, we need to actually be clear on this. While that joke is true, it's not entirely true, as we will get into. If you notice that I'm a little more different sounding right now, well, the combat part took a lot out of my voice because I was a little more yelling. It actually strained my voice because I couldn't find the right words to say, ironically. I just never felt satisfied with what I was saying and how I was saying it, so this one will be a little more calmer. Combat has 3 members in a party. Basically, you can only have 3 members out in combat, and these party members are assigned MMO roles. Like, for example, Ravager, which, wow, is really a stupid name. In any case, is your magical DPS, while your Commando is your physical DPS. We will get back onto those two in a bit. Then you have your more defensive role, like Sentinel, who will be the tank of the group. And your Medic will be, well, your Medic. The last 2 are your buff and debuffer, Synergist and Saboteur. Now, you would think this would lead into many strategies with these combinations. Well, not really. Sort of. You see, one of the biggest problems with this game is just how automated everything is. Your team members are all automated. The only member you control is the main character or leader of the group. And that's pretty much it. You can only decide what that particular character can do, and even then, most times than not, auto battle will always be the better choice since it's quicker, gets you what you want, and deals the most damage. For the most part, we'll talk about that. The only real choice you have in combat is to when you switch paradigms, and that's it. Paradigms are what they call your group right now. For example, if you have a Commando, Ravager, and Medic, that is called diversity. And basically, you could switch this with any other paradigm if you want. However, for the most part, you will rarely ever want to change your paradigm because, well, there are just better paradigms. For example, that diversity paradigm I just mentioned, it's pretty much the best offensive paradigm because Basically, it allows you to keep attacking without having to stop. And the only time you'll ever change it is if the medic dies or if they're dealing way too much damage, thus you switch to a role that has a sentinel class to allow for defense. That is pretty much it. And that's not to say that the other roles aren't good, they're just not that good enough. You know what I mean? Like, the Synergist and Saboteur aren't bad, they're only good against enemies with a lot of HP or against bosses. That's pretty much it. Though speaking on HP, a lot of enemies have way too much HP. I know I just said against enemies with a lot of HP, but what I mean by that, I mean ridiculous amount of HP. Like, more than rivals some bosses before and after them. And the late game suffers this a lot because a lot of the enemies near the end game are just way too high. I've always interpreted that the idea of why the stagger gauge exists is because enemies have way too much HP. You see, the stagger gauge is something that the Commando and Ravager can deal with. Also the Saboteur, but we're just focusing on those first two. You see, the Ravager builds up the gauge, but the longer the Ravager does this, the faster it decreases. The Commando basically steadies the bar long enough so that the Ravager can keep doing it. And, once it's full, you'll be able to deal a lot of damage to your opponent through the Commando. Though that's not to say that the Ravager can't either, it's just that the Commando gets a bonus if the opponent is staggered. However, that leads into the real problem. Remember that automation I just said? Well, basically, you've already figured out the strategy. Basically, build that up until you can do the stagger, then kill them if you can, repeat if you need to heal, go with a class that has Sentinel and just wait it out until you're fully healed, then repeat the first part. That is how combat works in a nutshell. There is no real grand strategy, there's really not much else you can do. That is the entirety of the combat. And it's really not helped with how much, again, the auto battle is just the best use of your time. Because it is just that much of a time saver than actually pressing all the moves. And mind you, this isn't even talking about other things in the game that really started to get on my nerves when I started noticing them. Like, let's say for example, you did go out of your way to actually select some moves, okay? Well, here's a fun fact. Some of your moves can whiff. A lot of people don't actually talk about this, and I'm a little surprised about why not. You see, I haven't actually mentioned some spells in the game because, again, you're not using them. They are. You're only telling them, hey, can you use these particular set of spells? You know what I mean? I haven't actually mentioned AoE attacks. Yeah, they're in the game. Which you'll only ever use against smaller group of enemies because using your single shot attacks will always be better than using any of the AoE attacks. I haven't actually also mentioned AoE attacks that enemies use. Yeah, I totally forgot enemies had these as well. And they're really annoying because these can actively change the flow of battle. Because you see, for whatever reason, and I still to this day don't know why, your teammates will move in weird directions. I don't know why they did this. Because unlike games like Chrono Trigger where placement matters, for the most part it doesn't really matter in this game. However, you can move towards an enemy towards an AoE attack, meaning that you're kinda screwed through no fault of your own. You have no control over where your teammates are moving. And against the Bahamut battle, it is frustrating because sometimes they can get too close to Bahamut getting attacked in this AoE attack because they're very wide attacks. Meaning that if your healer is stuck, too bad. Or maybe you're getting shot at by this thing here and you really can't tell them, hey, can you please move away from the target machine that's allowing the missiles to shoot at you? And it's really frustrating as if it prevents you from actually healing your leader, too bad. Game over. You lose. I never understood why certain games will make it that if the main character or party leader dies, game over. It's a stupid mechanic that I have never seen anyone defend once. Ever. because it makes no sense. Well, except RTS games where you're the tacticianer like Robin from Fire Emblem Awakening, but even then, not really. It's a mechanic that can make battles more frustrating because all they can do is just target and rampage one unit, and then boom, you're dead. There's no real grand strategy for this, it's just that it's a roll of the dice, hoping your main leader doesn't die. Though speaking on RNG, we need to talk about item drops. Yeah, item drops work really weird here. You see, it's calculated by doing this formula. Why is it a formula instead of just a percentage? I don't know. I mean, like, that could be said about a lot of this game because I just genuinely don't know why they thought this was okay. And honestly, the only reason why you'll ever care about item drops is so that you can upgrade your weapons. Or may not, because a lot of players don't ever care to upgrade their weapons, and really, I can't blame them. Why upgrade something else when you can just upgrade your main weapon and just stick with that? And yes, I do know that there are just better weapons in the game, but why would I care? This is better right now. Why waste materials for a weapon that might not be even better than the weapon you're currently holding? I only ever messed with it a little and I just stopped doing it after a while. And that's just because you don't find that many equipment over throughout the game. I mean, sure, the shop unlocks some weapons for you, but you don't spend money on those weapons. You spend money on items. That's it, because you don't gain gil through battle. Yeah, you don't gain gil through battle. So what's even the point of most battles? Well, that's just to gain XP or Christian points. Christian points are points that you can allocate to your roles, basically making a character better in one particular role. However, I have to ask, what's the point of the leveling up system, because it really doesn't make that much of a difference. Because you see, there's really nothing more to invest your points into. Like, if you're going to focus on a commando for lightning for some reason, you're just going to focus on commando. So why not just make it so that the points automatically go to you one of the assigned roles? So that way you don't have to fiddle around with it. And you really do want to put the points into whatever role you're mostly focusing on so that they can survive a little better. And again, it's a mostly automated system because all you need to do is press on the accept button just to fill it up. There's really no grand thought in this. Except for abilities, but you would already want to get those abilities already, so why bother thinking about it? You know what I mean? And it's not helped with the game limiting how strong you can get after every chapter. Yes, the game will limit how strong you can get, meaning that if you grind, you're just wasting your time. Which is really baffling because why wouldn't you just want players to get as strong as they want to handle any fight they want? But then again, that implies that this combat can be difficult, which I have to vehemently say, no it's not. It's not that difficult. It's mostly just press the button and press another button to change the paradigm. That's it. That's all this combat is. You're just pressing auto battle until you need to change roles. And that's it, and you might not even select that many roles to begin with. And that's why the combat sucks. It's automated, everything's already solved, so why are you bothering? You know what I mean? And honestly, I'm not entirely done. We'll need to talk about some things later, but otherwise, that's it. So, let's get back to the plot. So Hope then decides, suddenly out of nowhere, to grow a pair and state that, yeah, this is all their fault. And strangely enough, he was mostly right because instead of getting the kids out of there and maybe in a safe spot so they won't get near, the demigod-like being that will make you a slave, He also decides to add Sarah to this, where I'm on both sides of this, as it's kinda really is Sarah's fault, as instead of running away from the dangerous ruin and telling someone about it, she walked in and pretty much doomed the city to death by pulse. I mean, that's just a matter of fact. Though I won't lie, it was not the right time to mention it. Also, I'm going to say this now with how Hope and Vanille are written. they kind of look like a budding relationship, but we all know that won't happen. It was just something I felt at the time was going to happen when I didn't know anything. So was that just me, or did anyone else get that vibe? In any case, the game begins its annoying process as it begins our what's our focus thing, which will become a redundant thing over time. I swear on my life, you can make a drinking game with how many times this thing comes up, and it happens way too much. However, we will need to talk about it again, so let's reiterate what it is. So, okay, a focus is a hazy glint at what a fallacy wants you to do. But the problem is that it's always so vague that it can't tell you anything. It's kind of like the Exiles, but a lot worse. And that's just mostly because they have no direction. They pretty much have to guess what the fallacy wants. And I don't have to tell you how stupid that is. And that's not even including the dumb move of making all the scenes of the focus be future scenes, as in things that will happen in the game, that if looked at one way, could be used to say that their focus was to really protect Cocoon. Yeah, I'm not joking, this game is that kind of stupid, I just wouldn't put it past it. But no, it can't be that, because literally, that would screw over their plans that their bosses have. And they wouldn't be that stupid. Okay, they're slightly stupid, but not that stupid. In any case, Hope begins to then tell them all a bit about his focus, as Saz is confused as they all have the same focus. Which, Saz, that's how they work. You are given a task, then asked to do it. If you won't do it, someone else will. Why wouldn't your focus all be the same? They all then mention Ragnarok, which I'm a little confused by, because how do they all know what Ragnarok looks like? At least an idea of what he looks like, because since he's nowhere mentioned, well, except by the main characters, and is at best a legend, so how the hell would they know that name and what he looked like? And before somebody mentions the parade, no, it doesn't. Snow then offers the dumb idea that they need to save Cocoon. Vanille asks, why's that? And he's all like, 'cause Sarah. And I'm like, damn it, Snow, just shut the hell up, as he tries to find Sarah. Of course, I just sigh. And it soon repeats. I'm not even joking. The game does this for no reason. Though it does have a scene I do love. It's basically reacting to Snow's stupid idea, where they all get this dumbfounded look. Saz is like, yeah, right. Vanille's confused. Hope is dumbfounded by this action, and Lightning is just filled with contempt for him. And it's hilarious. However, he strangely enough brings up an oddity that cannot really be ignored. You see, Sarah turned into a crystal. Yeah, no duh, but that means she completed her focus. Or someone intervened, and that latter one I have not yet to find any evidence of. So, and mind you, the book does mention that her focus is pretty much, destroy Cocoon. So what the hell happened? Well, here's the thing. Basically, she changed it. Yep, she somehow changed her focus because she wielded it. So yeah, those people who became Sieve, those monsters who feel infinite pain, yeah, they just didn't want to not become a monster bad enough. Seriously, what? And before somebody tells me it's not possible to do that, the third game does that with Snow. We'll need to get back onto him in a bit, but in due time, friends. In due time. Showing that's how it works. And I really don't have to tell you, that sort of, well, for lack of a better term, Deus Ex Machina is kind of bad for your story, because now the stakes are pointless because all they need to do is will it. Now granted, they don't know it, but neither did Sarah, so... Though this hardly matters, yes, I know I just said that, it just, this fact does not show up till way later, it just felt better to say it here. Now this is where I really do need to mention some other things because of how I work. You see, this script has been in the works for a really long time, and I had this information in my head for a long time, and while the wiki tells me, yeah, this is true, a lot of other people tell me it's not true, even though it is confirmed by the book, And look, I know this sounds like, why are we even going on about this? It's just because I want you to note this, that even this point is contentious because there is no real clear defined point. And that even this simple point of, did she transform because of completing her focus, or did she wield it? Or was her focus something else completely, and she completed that? Even that simple idea is complicated and not elaborated on, which is really the core issue with 13. It is trying to tell a story in the most inefficient way possible. However, right now, I do want to thank one of the Redditors, Black Rider, who is actually kind of like the moderator for the FF13 Reddit, for actually talking with me and trying to get to some points. Which I did learn some valuable information, and I really do thank them. I just wanted to say that because, be nice. And then Sans points out the obvious. Like, of course he does, because he's the smartest character here. Then Lightning prepares to kill Snow, and I'm like, hey, don't get my hopes up here. I'm already annoyed, don't push it. They then get surrounded by Psycom, and I'm like, oh god, please shoot them. But they don't. Even though, if the idea was to again kill them, why just not shoot them right now and just get it over with? Again, I mention this because that plot point is kinda stupid, when the plot doesn't conform around this idea that Psycom are going to be evil assholes. But it hardly matters them surrounding them, as Lightning quickly kicks this guy's ass, which wouldn't signal them to just open fire because, he's dead. But no, they're idiots. Of course. And we easily kill them. Just slaughter at this point. After the fight, Sans makes the point to mention that they're supposed to be the best of the best, yet they were killed by a soldier, a rebel, a pilot with guns, a kid with this thing, and a whip with a boomerang. All he's saying is this should have been harder. As Vanille's doing this hand sign, I have no idea, maybe it's supposed to be a prayer. Snow then says that they aren't trained at all, which begs the question, why don't they fight monsters to train since, they're all over Cocoon? And are a major issue for some towns, including yours? Then Lightning makes a point of when the elites appear, they will be goners, which makes no sense, and shouldn't they be less trained if anything? All I'm saying is, this is dumb. In any case, we move forward some more, and I just sigh as the hallways are just becoming even more boring. As I stated before, long art museums with not enough art in them to keep you entertained. During these, I saw some optional dialogue. Basically, they pop up during in-between battles, characters talking to one another. And one thing I did not notice is that before all this, they have yet to even give each other their names. Which is like, what? Which I'm pretty sure most people would ask and learn each other's names before journeying together. I'm just saying. But I also hate how we can also miss them because of just how the dialogue works, because it will just stop if we get into battle and won't continue on. Then a miracle happens. A nice scene comes up. No, genuinely nice. Like, it makes me say, if they had more scenes like this, I think I would have tolerated these guys a lot more. It's short, to the point, building on what character motivations are there with his lines, with bonding with the characters. It works. It's a nice scene. Wish there were more. Soon enough, we find the crystallized body of Sarah, where we see Lightning is visibly disturbed by this. Again, I'm using this when I mentioned the last game because, oh my god, that story is just god-awful. Like, I hate this story, but let me tell you, the last one is the worst. But in any case, we see Lightning is very distraught, but needs to try to push herself to go forward. Then Snow says something stupid, like always.
No one will die. I'll protect Sarah and Cocoon.
Like you did with these people? Yeah, probably. And here's my favorite part. Then my second. Suddenly, the Manaphin war mech from earlier appears again, and I'm like, the hell is a Manaphin still? But you might be wondering, wait, why are we fighting him? Well, it's because this is a tutorial of staggering, which I just explained before. Yeah, the game's kinda slow like that, where it will try to introduce you to something, even though you had the thing for the longest time. However, it is a good tutorial still for it, because this boss has like over 30,000 HP, when most attacks you're gonna be able to do is like 100, or less, depending. After the battle, Lightning prepares to leave as Sauce mentions the obvious, but Snow's an idiot as Lightning mentions a focus, which makes little sense, as we proceed to my third favorite scene in this game, as Hope also being a little wuss and just doesn't say anything and walks away. After more faffing about and doing nothing, they see an airship that is looking for Pulseless sea stuff, as Saz goes into a bit of the fear of Pulse itself, which, fine I guess. It's not like it works really well because, well, they've been in peace for a long time, so this fear is a bit unsubstantiated. In a way, but not entirely. We'll get into that when we get into that. As they continue forward, they find some ruins, unaffected by the crystal. Alas, the question, why? Was this ruin always under the water? Or something? Like, why is it here? What purpose does it serve in an artificial world? It's just here for some reason. Whatever, after some time wasting a good half hour of what else? Pointless walking, pointless battles, and pointless scenery, they soon reach a cutscene, and I have to ask the writers and dubbers too, as it's really confusing. So here's a little thing for people who don't know. This game got a big push for the West. As in, they actually went out of their way to edit the cutscenes a bit so that dialogue would match lips, which is really rare for Japanese games, but in any case, it just kind of brings up a real question that I really did have for this game. Why, oh god, why, were all of Vanille's very weird, annoying sound noises, or these, not removed or reduced entirely, since they are that annoying? And you know what's worse? It leads into another boss fight that is just more annoying because it's multi-phase and has a cut for no reason. Seriously, it just cuts here for some reason. Why not just increase its HP and make it a phase battle? Wait a moment, what the hell am I saying? That would just make it even longer. It's just that this is the only time in my memory where this happens, where the game will just cut the boss battle for no reason, just to go back to it. After the fight, we miraculously find an airship where a bird is watching us. That's cool. You know, ironically, I never noticed till now, while I'm actually doing the voiceover, that the fact that none of them actually questioned that this perfectly fine airship here in the ruin, full of soldiers, it's just left unoccupied here. I mean, yeah, I know it's a trap, but wouldn't at least Lightning say, hey, this could be a trap, but everyone just agreeing that it's their only way out? The game then switches to Snow, Joy, as he's digging up Sarah. He is soon found by Psycom, who is then surrounded. Snow begins to fight him off, but more soldiers come in and Snow is beaten down. I would add this to my favorite moments in this game, but then this happens.
What's he doing? Watch yourself! Stay alert!
Which confuses me in so many ways. For example, the game is using wind to kill these guys. Wow, the wind. Truly a deadly weapon. But okay, seriously here, these are Eidolons, which are creatures made by TheTrue to help l'Cie either by killing them or helping them do their focus. Yeah, and ironically, it's the first part that confuses me. Not because killing him would be a mercy or anything. Well, actually it is, but okay. See, for whatever reason, the series made TheTrue into someone who values life like so much that TheTrue calls Lightning a sinner for killing in self-defense. In the second game, it's a little confusing. We'll get to that when we get to that. Just note, she's a bit weird. Thus, why would she want her units to kill people? Or be okay with killing people? Like monsters, I get, but people? No. But in any case, this is where you need to fight your Eidolon. These fights are a little different as you need to build up the Gestalt meter, which builds up depending on what the Eidolons particularly want. For example, this one wants you to defend more than attack, which I do easily because what else am I supposed to do? But honestly, these can get really annoying because of the timer. You see, all the Eidolons can cast Doom on you when you meet them. So basically, you're on a timer, which is really annoying because why do that? Just let me do it at my own pace. And this is doubly annoying because I didn't mention this earlier. Here's the thing you need to know too. All bosses have Doom. After some time, if you aren't killing them quickly enough, they will cast it. Because, that's what I want to do in my free time. Have the boss immediately kill me because I'm just taking my time and doing this my way. I mean, that never happened to me, but still. In any case, after beating them, we get the Gestalt form, which is actually a bike, which, all honesty, looks pretty cool. But because of what I know, this is actually pretty creepy. Because here's the thing. Remember that Ultimania guide I mentioned way earlier? Well, you see, it's supposed the Shiva sisters are supposed to represent Sarah and Lightning. Oh, God. Again, from the books. Which is just, ew, super creepy. But then suddenly, Snow is all tuckered out for no reason, even though moments ago he was fine. This is where we actually meet Fang, the last main character of the group, who won't be playable until around 10 hours in. Yeah, and Snow will be gone for a while too. So just get used to 2 party members for a while, though not now as we go back to them. Who are listening to Cocoon News, where we learn about the Primarch, which confuses me a bit to what's the point of the Primarch when the game kinda makes it out to be the fal'Cie who's running it, so why just not have the fal'Cie run it to begin with? You know what I mean? I know the answer, it's just that it's pretty stupid still. They are soon set upon again by Psycom, and after tapping Phoenix, they soon crashed into the Vile Peaks. And yes, they survive. Seriously, how hard is it to just rewrite it to where it would have been easier just to say that Saz, using his excellent piloting skills, to make the rough landing, but everyone's hurt, while Claire got up and dragged them out and had to defend them for a while, as they all slowly awaken and try to help Lightning. Would have been a good bonding moment emphasizing their need to stick together, yet no, they just cut away to black and for no reason show us their and it's more easy fight through here as Lightning kind of becomes stupid and says they're being tracked. Which makes little sense because if I saw that crash site, I would say they all died. But whatever, you know what? Continuing on. Also, it's night now for some reason. Lightning then separates from them as Hope tries to follow her. Because, it's his best way to survive sticking with the person who knows what they're doing. While Saz and Vanille wonder where they can go and Vanille says something stupid, like usual. Then this happens and I have to ask, why? This is where they separate a bit more as we lead into another flashback. Joy. But it's a flashback to not only Vanille, but also Lightning and this guy. Yeah, if you've never read the book, you really have no idea who this guy is. And yeah, the game gives enough context to know that he's her commander, but that's it. Nothing of more like why he matters at all. The only real thing it shows was that Lightning's life was heading up. And also, emotions. After the flashback is over, we learn about the two new roles we are given, being Synergist and Saboteur. Which, why? Again, this game gets called a long tutorial for a reason, even though you'll likely have learned about these roles already. Though for the most part, I hardly ever use them due to not wanting to waste my time except with higher end enemies and bosses. Maybe if you want to use Saz's Haze, but that's it. We then get an explanation of the difference between Psycom and the Guardian Core, which I already explained in the beginning as it's not complicated. Though then again, it didn't bring up the actual difference beforehand, so they thought might as well explained it. Which I'm confused on why not just explain what it is when it's brought up, and not just now of all time. Though it's more there to actually get an explanation of why Lightning was there to begin with. As she just said Sarah, and flashback again, and her quitting the Guardian Corps. Then taking her sword away, thus they must have just left it on the train? Also, it's supposed to show how Lightning and Saz met. It's okay. To kind of bring this up again, my real big issue is that the game is not really helping its flow at all since it's all over the place. I kind of have to still wonder why the placement of cutscenes weren't better, as some info could have truly helped the flow much more. Seriously, when I say that this game's story was not designed well, I mean that with impunity, cause again, it does not work well. Lightning then leads Hope, Joy. We go back to the two wanderers that will not decide what to do because that's what they will always do. And we get this.
1, 2, 3, we go.
What are you up to? Hey!
Why are we still here? Just to suffer? Every night, I can feel my leg.
The only thing I want to ask whoever wrote this scene, because it had to be someone, what is your damage? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, there are very few times where I would say that. This is one of them. What the fuck? And soon enough you'll notice that I'm going to stop talking about the more smaller things because they either don't matter or are so irrelevant to my real anger to the scenes that they won't matter. It is also here where we will get introduced to freeway battles. And the only reason why I didn't bring this up earlier is that, well, it only ever happens rarely, and I mean rarely, like, it only happens here and on Pulse, and we'll get to Pulse in a bit. Though when I say in a bit, I mean a long while, because... Though strangely enough, they're more buggy if anything, because unless they're focused on each other, they will notice you and attack you on sight working together. Yeah, that's how they work. Soon enough, they meet up with Hope, and tell us stuff we already know. Like, nothing new, and this will be the last time the game will let you control Frey members for a long while. So yeah, they then actually make it to this place where Sots points out it's a Pulse warship. Which is really confusing. Because you see, if you haven't noticed, I've been mentioning the book a lot. And you see, a lot of people in the book reference the fact that Pulse had technology, but they really don't believe that they actually built it. Which is like, what the fuck? Are we going ancient Egypt on this? Seriously? And actually, they bring up something that is always something on my mind, but because of how the game is, I've never noticed it or even know it was there. You see, they talked about the outer rim was damaged, but they don't actually show where that actually is because, again, it's not really shown well. Like, you could notice it on the outside, but on the inside, you can't tell. It's weird, is all I'm saying. Actually, the Vital Peaks was where a lot of material was left behind, since they were originally planning on repairing Cocoon during the war. It just never happened, which I'm confused on why they didn't. It's just weird as all. On our way, we meet up with Lightning again, who keeps walking away as I just sigh from it all because it's just repeating itself, because this is all gonna happen for a while. As we get into another boss fight, as I wonder, where the hell is Hope in all this as we fall to the floor? I know that sounds weird, but wouldn't Hope come down to try to help them? Also, fun fact about these bosses, the Garuda from the temple and the fight here. They both have less health than the Manispin war mech we fought at the beginning. I know, that's just stupid. I just wanted you to know that. They soon stop at a nice looking spot, like honest to goodness night, like it looks really good. Sadly, we get more stupid to ruin the mood of the place. With this stupid scene of Lightning deciding to go after Sanctum because fuck the Fal'Cie. I was going to argue she was an idiot, but then again, the Fal'Cie were stupid here though. Though then again, also her target seems to be off because targeting Sanctum would destroy Cocoon. But then again, this game is that kind of stupid, so mulligan. However, Sod's words reach her as she just decides to walk off because what else can she do? She doesn't really know what to do anymore other than to go after Sanctum. Then Vanille begins to spew on some bullshit to the matter, and I'm like, just shut up. Holt decides to follow after her because again, best chance of surviving, but they are soon ambushed by Psycom, with a different color of armor for some reason, who instead of blowing stuff on top of them, they just did it so that they couldn't escape. Sans and Vanille, after hearing the explosion, instead of checking on their friends, are just, okay, they just decide to go into that direction. Because reasons. Where? I don't know, just because. Lightning then lets Hope join her for a little bit. I just really hope that Lightning doesn't go back on this.